What's the most ridiculous rule in your place of work? I once needed a pen. Figured this was a reasonable ask. Went to the supply closet on my floor, which was locked. Asked the floor's admin. She told me to go to the main supply room in the basement. Went to the basement and explained my situation of needing a pen. They told me all requests for supplies must be approved by my department head. Problem is, being new, I'd never met my department head. She also worked in San Francisco. I worked in Milwaukee, so I needed to send an email both introducing myself and asking her if I had permission to get a pen from the supply closet. All recreational activity is forbidden on company time and resources, except fantasy football. 2 weeks after I left my previous job, a memo went round saying people aren't allowed to look out of the windows at work anymore. It's a big ass glass building. No accusing other staff members of being witches. Yeah, it happened, so we had to make a rule. I run a hostel in Uganda. I used to work for a large bank. We had an attendance policy that was so complicated it actually created an incentive for employees to take an entire day off rather than be tardy too often. We can't ask others if they want to come grab a coffee in the break room. We have a lock on the first aid kits, so if you just need a band-aid for a cut, you have to get the key from the safety guy, which in turn makes it a reportable accident with mountains of paperwork and investigations. We use an unbelievable amount of duct tape now. I drive valet. The company handbook says you're never allowed to back up. Ever. You absolutely cannot do the job without reverse. It's impossible. It's in there because of liability and our insurance policy. This way it can always be the valet's fault if an accident occurs ever. All the extra toilet paper in the building has to stay in a single closet where it can be overseen by the toilet paper queen. I heard her shrieking the other day when she discovered someone had hoarded one spare roll of toilet paper upstairs, so the people who work upstairs wouldn't have to walk down multiple flights of stairs when the toilet paper ran out. A rule that said, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, which fairly obviously meant if there was no work then you should be cleaning things. It was at an aircraft servicing station that was fairly small, but we needed a crew of at least 3 people for larger planes. The problem was that sometimes there were just no planes, so there was no work. We would clean for a couple hours and then just run out of stuff to clean. But according to management, that was no good. We had to be busy. It got to be that we would fight over work when it came in because everyone was so bored, and finding pretend busy work was much harder than just working. I remember getting the crew together to pick up pebbles off the taxiway for a couple hours. There's an old joke in aviation, go sweep the taxiway. So we actually did it. I used to work for Amazon in Ireland and their toilet breaks were crazy. Maximum of 10 minutes a day, but also a maximum of 20 minutes per week. You had to change the status on your computer so everything was recorded, and some managers would call you out on it and even go as far as threaten your job. I had an understanding with my manager and told him if I need to take a sh then I'm going for it. Like any good manager, he just told me that as long as I give him the numbers he wants then I could do what I want. When I was in the military I saw a buddy of mine sitting outside crying. I went and consoled him best as I could. Apparently he was just depressed and unhappy. After he was feeling a bit better I went to go and find someone to tell them what was happening. They knew. In fact, he had been crying so much lately that they had instituted a no crying at your desk policy, which is why he was outside. Empty inbox. My boss was an inbox Nazi. Like if you had old emails in there he would flip and make you respond to them or delete them. Apparently you shouldn't have anything left at the end of the day. Deal with them or delete them. Jokes on him though. I just made a subfolder marked personal and everything went in there. Get effed Bill, you old wanker. I used to work for the now long defunct books, movies, and music store Media Play. Just one of the 285 reasons that poorly run business ran into the ground was the tardy/attendance policy. If you were literally 0.1 seconds late clocking in, even hours before the store opened, it was a really big deal. You'd not only be formally written up, but lectured like a child, oftentimes berated even. If you were tardy 3 times, bye. However, if you no-showed and then called 2 hours later saying you were sick, okay, thank you, feel better, This trained everyone to just take a sick day instead of being half a second late to work. I can't tell you how many times you'd see a coworker screeching into the parking lot before work, after fighting traffic from a wreck, or whatever, noticing it was 8:01, and then slowly driving off to go home, and feign being sick. This was particularly upsetting when it was a pull-down stock week, when we needed every hand on deck, but had unusually early shifts. There was an issue where there was too much socializing going on the factory floor, particularly when people were working while sitting down. False, skewed supervisor perception, so they made everybody stand. When that presented ergonomics problems, they brought in these weird chairs that made you sit at a slant, had no backs, and no wheels, so they wouldn't cause distractions. No part of it made any sense. I don't know if it's standard, but I worked at a place where ours wasn't allowed to tell us if someone was fired. It was a big enough place that you might not immediately realize someone had left, and when you found out, you weren't supposed to ask why. So, if you wanted to know if they were fired, you asked, was there cake? Which was to say that if the person had retired or left pleasantly after a number of years, they would be given a party with cake. If they were fired, not so much. I haven't seen Brian for some time. Brian is no longer with us. Brian no longer works here. Was there cake? Fireman. Our risk management department decided long ago that poles were too risky for us. So we use the stairs. We have poles. Anyway, now the newest rule is no free weights, as in no free weights to work out. Stay fit. Go into burning high-rise absolutely. Walk around the station carrying 40-pound dumbbells. Too risky. If you are 1 minute late it is a tardy. If you take a half day nothing goes on your record. I was told to just take a half day if you are going to be late, because they straight up fire you for tarders. Also if you clock out early it is a tardy. If you have to go to the doctor on lunch break, and it is going to take an hour and 10 minimum, take the rest of the day off. Weird. I used to work at a place in which my boss implemented a no more than 2 glasses a day water policy. What a cut. I ignored this rule and complained directly to our CEO and the matter ended later that day. What was weird though was the majority of people actually followed the rule and some even shot me up 2 hours about breaking the rules. I left not long after that, because not only was my boss a bellend, but if my colleagues were going to HR over me drinking water, then I obviously couldn't trust them. Old job of mine in a warehouse. Our stations were pretty far apart, so when we'd listen to music we'd all usually have our own stuff playing. Not a problem, since you could barely hear the neighbor's music. Well, the CEO didn't like hearing multiple songs when walking through the warehouse. He made a rule that we all either had to listen to the same music, or none at all. Many years ago I was a vacuum cleaner salesman. There were songs about this particular brand of vacuum cleaner, and how awesome it was. Every morning, we had to sing these songs as a group. In fairness, it was a pretty quality item. No lunch/bathroom break in a 12-hour shift. Retail pharmacist here. I eat/pee on the run. Once worked at a place where some minibus decided that, since UPS trucks don't turn left, we shouldn't either. I don't know or care how well that worked out for UPS, but this was a goddamned ambulance company with a 911 contract. I will turn left if and when I need to turn left. Business casual dress code, even when I work at home. They Skype me to check. I worked as a call receiver. We never saw a customer. We were only on the phones with them. Rule: your hair must only be a natural color. I dyed my hair the same exact color that someone from a different shift had. I was reprimanded. I told them that if the rule is not enforced for everyone, they couldn't single me out. Their reasoning for letting the other person have that color but not me: mine was my real hair, dyed an unnatural color. Hers was a weave that could be changed very easily. Really? Then why hasn't she been asked to change her hair? Because that shit's expensive. They gave up trying to convince me they were in the right. My agency has a 9-page document detailing how, where and when someone can make and consume microwave popcorn. 9 pages. If we want to take a full 5-day week off we need to use 2 vacation days, 1 personal, and 2 more vacation days. Can never use 3 vacation days straight. My dad told me this one a while back. He used to work for a PR firm. The way he described the office environment, think The Office, but in the 1980s. The company hired a corporate efficiency specialist to come in and improve things. She came in and implemented all kinds of rules, which seemed to follow some sort of caste system. Her philosophy was, the higher your office rank, the more perks you get. Her idea of perks: number of pictures you are allowed in your cubicle, whether you are allowed to have a potted plant or not. Coffee mugs were only allowed to senior employees. Others had to use paper cups. Being allowed to leave the office for lunch was also considered a perk. Needless to say, a coup soon followed, and she was tossed out on her hinny. Old workplace had assigned desk location for various things like phone and stapler. You were also only allowed 2 personal items on your desk. I was written up because I brought my own red stapler and it didn't fit in between the lines put on the desk. I work in retail and we have on-call shifts. Your name will be listed on the schedule for a certain time as a call-in, so you have to call 1 hour before your shift to figure out if they need you to work for the day. For example, you would be listed as on call for 2 p.m. and wouldn't know until 1 p.m. if you were working that evening. If you don't call in, it's considered not showing up for a shift, but there's no extra pay for the shift, whether they need you or not. So for 3 days of the week, I don't know if I have to work or not. Can't make any solid plans to do anything except call my work and ask if they need me. I can't imagine having children or elderly that need taking care of because it would be such a hassle to arrange care for them just an hour before having to work.